All right, let's talk about how to get perfectly crispy chicken thighs every single time using just one pan. By the end of this, you're going to understand the one kind of counterintuitive trick that makes all the difference. This is the goal, right? Super crispy skin and meat underneath that's still tender and juicy. The secret isn't some fancy ingredient, it's all about technique, how you control the heat in a single skillet. So let's walk through exactly how it works. First up, what do you need? It's really simple, just 2 skin-on chicken thighs, some salt, and a tablespoon of oil. For your tools, a heavy skillet is key for that nice, even heat, and you'll definitely need a good pair of tongs. Okay, let's get started. Step 1 is all about prep. We're gonna dry and season the chicken. Getting this part right, well, it sets the foundation for everything else. So, the very first thing you need to do is pat that chicken skin completely dry with a paper towel. And I mean completely dry. This is non-negotiable. Why? Because moisture is the #1 enemy of crispy skin. If there's any water on there, it's just gonna steam instead of fry. So how do you know you've done it right? You can feel it. The skin should feel totally dry, maybe a little tacky to the touch. You shouldn't see any glistening moisture at all. Once you're there, you're ready to move on. Next up, grab your salt and season the chicken generously. And make sure you get all sides, not just the skin. This does 2 important things. First, it flavors the meat all the way through. And second, it helps pull out that last little bit of moisture from the skin, giving us the best shot at perfect crispiness. All right, now for the most important part of this whole process. Step 2, the cold pan render. Now this is where a lot of people make a mistake, but it's the absolute secret to this entire method. So this brings us to the big question whenever you're searing something. Do you start with a hot pan or a cold pan? You know, the common wisdom is actually often wrong here. Okay, so here's the breakdown. The common mistake is to throw the chicken into a super hot pan. But what happens is the skin just seizes up and burns before the fat underneath has any time to melt away. The right way to do it is to start with a cold pan. This lets all that fat render out slowly and completely, and the chicken skin basically fries in its own fat. That is how you get that perfect, even, maximum crispiness. So here's what you're gonna do. Take your chicken thighs and place them skin side down in your cold, heavy skillet. Notice we haven't put any oil in the pan yet. We don't need it. The chicken's gonna provide all the fat we need. Once the chicken is in the pan, now you turn on the heat. Set it to medium. Not high, not even medium high. Just a nice, steady, medium heat. That gentle, consistent temperature is what's gonna render the fat perfectly without burning the skin. And this next part, this might be the hardest part, but it is absolutely crucial. For the next 10 to 12 minutes, you cannot move the chicken. Don't poke it, don't lift it up to peak, just leave it alone. That's how you get that single, beautiful, unbroken crust. So here's what you should be listening for as time goes on. After about 2 minutes, you'll start to hear a really faint sizzle. By the 6-minute mark, that sizzle is going to be pretty active, and you'll see a good amount of fat has rendered out into the pan. Then somewhere between 10 and 12 minutes, the sizzle will be really consistent, and you'll start to see that deep golden brown color creeping up the sides. So that brings us to the big question. Is it ready to flip? The biggest temptation here is to get impatient and flip it too early. If you do that, you'll tear the skin and ruin that crust you've been working on. So how do you know for sure? Well, here's the best part. The chicken will tell you when it's ready. If you grab your tongs and give it a little nudge and it sticks to the pan, it's not ready. When that skin is perfectly rendered and crisp, it'll release from the pan on its own, with absolutely no sticking at all. Once it releases, it's time for the final cooking phase. We're on to step 3, flip and finish. The action here is simple. Just use your tongs to carefully turn the chicken over. Now you're just gonna let it cook for another 6 to 8 minutes on that second side. This is what's gonna cook the meat all the way through. And how do you know for sure that it's cooked? Here's the final checkpoint. Just press gently on the thickest part of the thigh with your tongs. If the juices that come out are perfectly clear, you're done. If you see any hint of pink, it just needs a little more time. Okay, the cooking is done, but whatever you do, don't cut into it yet. This brings us to the final, and I mean non-negotiable step. Step 4, rest and serve. So take the chicken out of the pan, put it on a plate or a cutting board, and let it sit. The absolute minimum resting time here is 3 minutes. So why is this so important? Well, when you cook meat, all the juices get pushed towards the center. Resting lets the muscle fibers relax and allows all those juices to redistribute back through the entire piece of chicken. If you skip this, all that delicious moisture is just going to run out onto your cutting board, and you'll end up with dry chicken. And here it is. This is the payoff for all that patience and technique. You get flawlessly crispy skin and meat that is just perfectly tender and juicy. Exactly what we were aiming for. You know, the final check is one you can actually hear. Take your tongs and give that skin a little tap. You should hear a hollow, crisp sound. That's when you know you've absolutely nailed it. And that is how you master one-pan crispy chicken thighs.